Get out! Get out of my house, you worthless woman! The rain hammered against the windows of the Lecky mansion as Obinna's voice shattered the evening calm. His face twisted with rage, spit flying from his mouth as he pointed a trembling finger at his wife. Yetunde stood frozen in the marble foyer, her silk blouse drenched from where he'd thrown a glass of water at her moments before. Their 2 children, 8-year-old Damilola and 5-year-old Bisi, clung to the banister upstairs, their small faces pressed between the railings, eyes wide with terror. "Obinna, please." Yetunde's voice cracked. "Please." "What?" He lunged forward, grabbing her arm hard enough to leave marks. "You think I don't know what you've been doing? You think I'm stupid?" Behind him, a woman emerged from the dining room, young, beautiful, pregnant. She wore one of Yetunde's designer dresses, the fabric straining across her swollen belly. She smiled, a cruel, triumphant smile that made Yetunde's blood run cold. "She's nothing, baby," the woman purred, running her manicured nails down Obinna's arm. "Just throw her out. She doesn't belong here anymore." Welcome back to Voice of Auntie Dora. Thank you so much for your incredible support. You all make this channel possible. Today's story will shake you to your core. Before we dive in, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in Atlanta, New York, Kingston, London? We love hearing from our family around the world. Now, let's get into this jaw-dropping tale of betrayal and ultimate revenge. What would you do if your husband threw you out in a storm and replaced you with his pregnant mistress? Hit like if you've ever experienced betrayal and comment below where you're watching from. Chapter 1. The security lights of the Lecky estate cast harsh shadows across Yetunde's face as Obinna dragged her toward the front door. The rain had intensified, sheets of water visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the driveway into a river. "Obinna, the children?" Yetunde tried to twist free, her eyes darting to the staircase where Damilola and Bisi were now crying openly. "The children stay here. They're my children. You're nothing but a burden I've carried for too long." His grip tightened, fingernails digging into her flesh. "Do you know how long I've waited for this moment? How many years I've pretended to love you?" The words hit harder than any physical blow. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of building a life together, of believing in their love story. Yetunde had met Obinna at the University of Lagos, back when he was a struggling business student with big dreams and empty pockets. She'd worked 3 jobs to support them both, typing papers for other students, selling provisions from their tiny room in Yaba, even cleaning offices at night while Obinna studied. "I gave you everything," Yetunde whispered, tears mixing with the water still dripping from her hair. "When you had nothing, You gave me nothing!" Obinna roared, and suddenly his hand was around her throat. Not squeezing, not yet, but the threat was clear. "Everything I have, I built. Every naira in my account, every property, every contract, that's my doing. You were just there, a placeholder, a convenience." The woman, Hadiza, Yetunde had learned her name was Hadiza, laughed from her position by the dining room. She'd made herself comfortable in Yetunde's home, wearing Yetunde's clothes, carrying Yetunde's husband's child. She'd been there for 2 weeks now, moving in while Yetunde was visiting her sick mother in Ibadan. That trip had been a trap. Yetunde understood that now. Obinna had called her, voice dripping with false concern, insisting she needed to spend time with her mother. "Take as long as you need," he'd said. "I'll handle everything here." What he'd meant was, "I'll replace you while you're gone." Yetunde had returned 3 days ago to find Hadiza sprawled on their bed, morning sickness making her pale, but her smile victorious. The master bedroom had been redecorated, all of Yetunde's photos removed, her clothes packed in boxes in the garage, her toiletries thrown away. "Surprise, darling," Obinna had said, not even bothering to look ashamed. "Hadiza is carrying my son. My real heir, not these." He'd waved dismissively at their children. "These mistakes." For 3 days, Yetunde had tried to hold on, tried to reason with him, tried to appeal to the man she'd loved for 14 years. She'd called his mother, who'd laughed and said, "About time my son found a proper woman." She'd called his sisters, who'd hung up on her. She'd even gone to their pastor, who'd suggested she pray harder and be more submissive. No one had helped. No one had cared. And now, as thunder cracked overhead and the rain pounded the earth like fists, Obinna was throwing her out into the storm. "Please," Yetunde begged, her pride finally crumbling. "At least let me say goodbye to my children. Let me get my documents, my clothes." "Your documents?" Obinna's laugh was harsh. "Everything in this house is mine. The children are registered in my name. The bank accounts? Mine. The cars? Mine. Even that little jewelry box you think I don't know about. I sold it last week. Your mother's gold, your grandmother's jade, all gone." Yetunde's legs nearly gave out. That jewelry box had been her emergency fund, her grandmother's legacy, the only thing of value she'd managed to hold on to. 3 generations of family heirlooms meant to be passed to her daughter. "No," she breathed. "No, you didn't." "Oh, but I did." Obinna's smile was pure malice. "I got 2.5 million naira for it. Spent it on Hadiza's Lexus. You've seen it in the garage, haven't you? The white one? Beautiful car. She loves it." Something inside Yetunde shattered. Not her heart. That had broken days ago. This was different. This was the death of hope, the final understanding that the man she'd loved, the man she'd sacrificed everything for, was a stranger wearing a familiar face. "You're a monster," she said quietly. Obinna's hand moved so fast she didn't see it coming. The slap echoed through the foyer, snapping her head to the side, making her ears ring. Upstairs, Bisi screamed, "Mommy!" Damalola started down the stairs, but Hadiza moved quickly, grabbing the boy's arm and yanking him back. "Stay here, little man," Hadiza cooed, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Your mommy is leaving, but don't worry, you'll have a new mommy soon, one who actually knows how to make your father happy." "I want my mommy," Bisi wailed, struggling against the banister. "Daddy, don't hurt mommy." But Obinna wasn't listening. He dragged Yetunde to the front door, threw it open, and shoved her out into the rain. The water hit her like a physical force, immediately soaking through her thin blouse and skirt. The security lights showed her driveway, her former driveway, stretching out before her. The gate closed and locked, the security guard conspicuously absent. "Obinna, please." Yetunde turned back, but he was already closing the door. "My children, you can't—" "I can do whatever I want," Obinna said coldly. "This is Lagos, Yetunde. Money is law here, and I have money. What do you have?" The door slammed shut. Yetunde stood there, rain plastering her hair to her skull, her clothes to her skin. Through the window she could see Hadiza ascending the stairs, heading for the children. Could see Obinna pouring himself a drink, his movements casual, unbothered. Could see her children's faces pressed against the upstairs window, small hands leaving prints on the glass as they cried for their mother. The gate buzzer sounded, the signal for her to leave. The security guard, who'd been paid off or threatened into compliance, was waiting to lock her out permanently. Yetunde walked down the driveway in a daze. Her bare feet, Obinna had thrown her out without her shoes, splashed through puddles. The rain was cold, unseasonably cold for Lagos in July, and she was shivering violently by the time she reached the gate. "Mrs. Yetunde," the guard, Musa said softly. His eyes were apologetic but firm. "I'm sorry," Mr. Obinna said. "I know what he said." Yetunde's voice was hollow. "Just open the gate." Musa pressed the button. The gate slid open with a mechanical hum that sounded like mockery. Yetunde stepped out onto the street. Behind her, the gate closed with a final, conclusive clang. She was homeless, penniless, barefoot in the rain. Nothing. The streets of Lekki were mostly empty at this hour, 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, the rain driving everyone indoors. Yetunde walked without direction, her mind blank, her body moving on autopilot. Water streamed down her face, indistinguishable from tears. She'd given up everything for Obinna. Her education. She'd been 2 semesters from finishing her accounting degree when she'd dropped out to work full-time. Her family. Her father had warned her about Obinna, had seen through his charm to the coldness underneath, and they'd argued so badly that Yetunde hadn't spoken to her father in 10 years. He'd died 5 years ago without them reconciling. Her friends, all gone, pushed away by Obinna's jealousy and her own misguided loyalty. Her identity. She'd become Mrs. Obinna Okafor, wealthy businessman's wife, society woman, perfectly styled and permanently silent. And now she was nothing. A car splashed past, drenching her further. The driver didn't even slow down. Yetunde's legs finally gave out at the corner of Admiralty Way and Legali Ayarinde. She sank down onto the curb, not caring about the water rushing past her, the mud, the darkness. What did it matter? She had nowhere to go, no one to call. Her phone was in the house, her purse, her ID, everything. She was starting from less than nothing. She was starting from ruin. "Help me," she whispered to the night, to God, to anyone who might be listening. "Please. Somebody help me." The rain was her only answer. Yetunde closed her eyes. Maybe she could just sit here. Maybe the rain would wash her away, and this nightmare would end. Her children would be better off without her. Obinna had made that clear. He had money, power, connections. What could she offer them now? A mother who was homeless and broken? No. Better they forget her. Better they... The sound of tires on wet pavement made her look up. A car was pulling over. Not just any car. A Rolls Royce Phantom, black and gleaming even in the rain, its silver spirit of ecstasy hood ornament catching the streetlight. The rear window rolled down, and Yetunde's heart stopped. Because the face looking out at her, lined with age but unmistakable, was one she hadn't seen in 12 years. "Uncle Segun," she breathed. Segun Badmus, billionaire oil tycoon, one of the richest men in Nigeria, her mother's older brother, smiled grimly. "Get in the car, Yetunde," he said. "We need to talk." The interior of the Rolls Royce was like entering another world. Cream leather seats, wood paneling that probably cost more than most people's houses, and a silence so complete that Yetunde could hear her own heartbeat. The driver, a stern-faced man in a black suit, had appeared with an umbrella, escorting her into the car as if she were royalty instead of a drowned rat. Uncle Segun sat across from her in the spacious rear cabin, his silver-streaked hair perfectly groomed, his navy blue agbada immaculate despite the weather. He was 72 years old, but looked a decade younger, his dark skin smooth, his eyes sharp and assessing. Those eyes, her mother's eyes, were fixed on Yetunde now with an intensity that made her want to shrink into the leather. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. Yetunde laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "I've been thrown out into a storm by my husband. How should I look?" "Angry." Uncle Segun leaned forward, his gaze never wavering. "You should look angry, Yetunde. Instead, you look defeated. That's disappointing." The words stung, but before Yetunde could respond, Uncle Segun pressed a button on the console beside him. A panel slid open, revealing towels, a blanket, and a crystal decanter of amber liquid. "Dry yourself," he commanded, passing her the towels. "Then we talk." Yetunde's hands shook as she accepted the towels. They were impossibly soft, Egyptian cotton probably, and they smelled like expensive detergent. She pressed one to her face, letting it absorb the rain and tears, trying to process the impossible reality of this moment. Uncle Segun, here, now. 12 years ago, there had been a massive fight at her wedding. Uncle Segun had cornered Obinna, said something that made the groom's face go white, and then walked out. Yetunde's mother had begged him to stay, but he'd refused. "That man is poison," he'd said, pointing at Obinna. "When he destroys her, don't come crying to me." Yetunde had been furious. How dare he ruin her wedding day? How dare he judge Obinna, who loved her, who'd promised her the world? She'd screamed at her uncle, said terrible things, things she could never take back. "I never want to see you again. You're jealous because I'm happy and you're alone." Uncle Segun had looked at her with such sadness. "I pray I'm wrong about him, Yetunde, but I'm never wrong about men like that." Then he'd left, and she hadn't seen or spoken to him since. Her mother had tried to bridge the gap over the years, but Yetunde had refused. Pride, stubborn, foolish pride. And now here he was, in his Rolls Royce, rescuing her from the gutter. "How did you know?" Yetunde finally managed, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. The car's heating system was working, but she couldn't stop shivering. "How did you know I'd be here?" "I didn't." Uncle Segun poured 2 glasses of cognac, Remy Martin Louis XIII. Yetunde noticed absently. A single bottle cost over 2 million naira. "I was coming from a meeting at Echo Hotel. My driver spotted you on the corner. At first I wasn't sure it was you. What kind of woman sits in the rain like that? Then I saw your face." He handed her a glass. Yetunde took it with both hands, her fingers barely able to grip properly. "Your mother called me this afternoon," Uncle Segun continued, his voice hardening. "She told me you'd visited her in Ibadan last week, said you seemed troubled but wouldn't talk about it. She asked me to check on you." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I was planning to drive by your house tomorrow. Looks like I'm a day late." "My mother," Yetunde's throat closed. "She sent you?" "Funmaleo knows me better than I know myself. She knew I could never truly cut you off, no matter what you said to me." Uncle Segun's expression softened slightly. "You're her daughter. That makes you mine to protect, whether you want it or not." The cognac burned going down, but it was a good burn, warming her from the inside. Yetunde took another sip, then another, feeling the alcohol start to dull the sharp edges of her pain. "Tell me everything," Uncle Segun said, "and don't leave anything out." So Yetunde told him everything. The slow erosion of her marriage, so gradual she hadn't noticed until it was too late. How Obina had started coming home later and later, smelling of perfume and lies. How he'd moved her out of the master bedroom 6 months ago, claiming he needed space for his work materials. How he'd started criticizing everything about her, her cooking, her appearance, her intelligence, her worth. "He told me I was lucky he married me," Yetunde said, her voice flat. "Said I was nobody from nowhere, and he made me into somebody. Made me Mrs. Okafor, gave me status, gave me a life." Uncle Segun's knuckles whitened around his glass. She told him about Hadiza, 26 years old, a model Obina had met at some club in Victoria Island. How she'd moved into the house, bold and shameless, eating at their table, sleeping in their bed, wearing Yetunde's clothes. How she paraded her pregnancy like a trophy, her hand constantly on her belly, her smile victorious. "She's carrying his son," Yetunde whispered. He said our children were mistakes. Damalola and Bisi, his own blood, and he called them mistakes." "Where are the children now?" "Still in the house. With him. With her." Yetunde's hands started to shake again, cognac sloshing in the glass. "He wouldn't let me take them, said they're his property, that I have no rights." "Property." Uncle Segun's voice was deadly quiet. "He called your children property. He called me nothing." Yetunde finally met her uncle's eyes. "He said I'm nothing, that everything I am, everything I have came from him, and without him, I'm just empty." For a long moment, Uncle Segun said nothing. He simply looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he pulled out his phone, a custom iPhone, platinum-plated, and made a call. "Jibenga," he said without preamble, "I need a full background check on Obina Okafor, CEO of Okafor Enterprises. Yes, that one. I want everything. Bank accounts, business dealings, properties, debts, affairs, illegal activities, everything, and I need it by tomorrow morning." He paused, listening. "I don't care if it's late. Wake up whoever you need to wake up. This is priority 1. He ended the call and looked at Yetunde. "What are you doing?" she asked. "What I should have done 12 years ago." Uncle Sagan's smile was cold. "I'm going to destroy him." The Rolls Royce pulled up to a gate that slid open to reveal a driveway that put Obina's mansion to shame. Uncle Sagan's estate in Banana Island was legendary. Yetunde had heard about it over the years, the whispered stories of its grandeur, but she'd never seen it herself. Now, as the car glided up the palm-lined drive, she understood why people spoke of it in hushed, reverent tones. The house, no, the palace, rose before her like something from a dream. 3 stories of white stone and glass, illuminated by subtle landscape lighting that made it glow against the night sky. A fountain danced in the circular courtyard, water sparkling under spotlights. Through the massive windows, Yetunde could see crystal chandeliers, artwork, elegance beyond measure. This was power, real power, the kind that made Obina's wealth look like pocket change. "Welcome home," Uncle Sagan said, helping her out of the car. "For tonight, at least. Tomorrow, we make plans." A woman appeared at the entrance, middle-aged, kind-faced, wearing traditional wrapper and buba. "Uncle Sagan, welcome back." Her eyes widened as she took in Yetunde's bedraggled state. "Oh, my dear, what happened?" "This is Yetunde, my niece," Uncle Sagan said. "She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the blue guest suite, and send for Dr. Okonkwo. I want her checked for hypothermia and any injuries." "Of course, sir." The woman, her name tag read Mrs. Ifoma, immediately took charge, ushering Yetunde inside with gentle efficiency. "Come, dear. Let's get you warm and dry." Yetunde let herself be led through halls that seemed to stretch forever, past rooms filled with African art and modern sculptures, up a sweeping staircase of white marble. The blue guest suite was larger than her entire former bedroom, decorated in soothing shades of blue and cream, with a bathroom that featured a sunken tub and a shower with what looked like 16 different jets. "I'll run you a bath," Mrs. Ifoma said, already moving toward the bathroom. "And I'll have hot soup and bread sent up. You need food, warmth, rest." "I need my children," Yetunde said numbly. Mrs. Ifoma paused, her face full of compassion. "And you'll get them back, dear. If Uncle Sagun says he'll help you, he will. That man keeps his promises." She smiled. "Now let me take care of you." Can't fight battles on an empty stomach. 40 minutes later, Yetunde was clean, warm, and dressed in soft pajamas that had mysteriously appeared in her size. The soup, pepper soup with goat meat and yams, was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Or maybe she was just starving. She'd eaten 2 bowls before Dr. Okonkwo arrived, a brisk woman in her 50s who examined her thoroughly, clucking her tongue at the bruises on Yetunde's arms. "Finger marks," Dr. Okonkwo said grimly. "Recent. Who did this?" "My husband. Ex-husband, soon enough." Dr. Okonkwo's expression hardened. "No hypothermia, thank God, but you're exhausted and malnourished. Have you been eating properly?" Yetunde thought about the past few weeks, how she'd barely been able to force down food with Hadiza smirking at her across the table. "Not really." "Well, you'll eat now. Mrs. Ifeoma will make sure of that." Dr. Okonkwo packed up her medical bag. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow we fight." After she left, Yetunde lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling. The sheets were silk, the mattress heaven, but she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her children's faces pressed against the window, crying for her. Damalola, her sensitive boy, who loved books and science and asked questions about everything. Bisi, her fierce daughter, who'd once punched a boy for saying girls couldn't play football. What were they thinking right now? Did they hate her for leaving? Did they believe Obina when he said she'd abandoned them? A soft knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Come in," Yetunde called. Uncle Sagun entered, now dressed casually in traditional wrapper and a simple shirt. He carried a thick folder and a laptop. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, settling into the armchair near the bed. "How can I?" Yetunde sat up. My children are with that monster and his pregnant mistress, yes. Uncle Segun opened the folder. Hadiza Salisu, 26. From Kano originally. Failed model, failed actress, professional mistress. This is her fourth wealthy man. The other three threw her out when they realized she was after their money, not them. Yetunde blinked. You already have information on her? I have people. Uncle Segun's smile was thin. Good people who work fast. Hadiza isn't pregnant with Obina's first child, by the way. She has a 3-year-old daughter living with her mother in Kano. Father unknown, or rather, father untraceable because Hadiza was seeing multiple men at the time. She has a child already? Yetunde's mind reeled. But she told Obina. She told him this would be her first baby. She lied. She's very good at lying. Uncle Segun flipped through papers. She's also very good at spending money. In the 2 weeks she's been living in your house, she's charged over 5 million naira to Obina's credit cards. Designer clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, a car. The Lexus. He bought it with my grandmother's jewelry money. Actually, no. Uncle Segun looked up, his eyes gleaming. He bought it with embezzled funds from his company. Yetunde froze. What? Obina Okafor is a fraud, Yetunde. A very clever one, but still a fraud. He's been cooking his company's books for years, siphoning money into offshore accounts, using shell companies to hide assets. His legitimate business makes maybe 20 million naira profit per year, but he lives like he makes 200 million. Uncle Segun tapped the folder. That money has to come from somewhere. He told me he was a successful businessman. He is, successfully stealing from his investors. Uncle Segun's voice hardened. He has 17 investors who've poured money into Okafor Enterprises, believing they're funding a legitimate import-export business. What they don't know is that 60% of their investment is going straight into Obina's personal accounts. The Lekki mansion? Bought with stolen money? The cars? Stolen money? The lifestyle? All stolen. Yetunde felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. How do you know all this? Because I'm one of his investors. The words hit like a bomb. What? Uncle Segun smiled grimly. 6 years ago, Obina approached me through intermediaries about investing in his company. He didn't know I was your uncle. We have different last names, and you weren't using Badmus anymore. I invested 5 million naira as a test. He leaned back. When I didn't see appropriate returns, I got suspicious, started investigating. Found the fraud 3 years ago. 3 years ago? Yetunde's voice rose. Why didn't you arrest him? Expose him? Uncle Segun's expression was hard. Because you were still with him. You'd made your choice. And exposing him would have destroyed you too. You'd have lost the house, the lifestyle, everything. Your children would have suffered. So you just watched? I watched, I waited. I gathered evidence. Uncle Segun opened his laptop, turning it so Yetunde could see the screen. It was filled with financial documents, bank transfers, emails. I've been building a case for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now? Now he's given me the perfect excuse. Uncle Segun's smile was sharp as a knife. He threw you out, abused you, chose his mistress over his wife and children. Every judge in Lagos will side with you once they hear what he's done. And once we add financial fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. He closed the laptop with a soft click. Obina Okafor is finished. Yetunde stared at her uncle, understanding dawning. You've been planning this, all along. I've been preparing for the day you'd need me. There's a difference. Uncle Segun stood. Get some rest, Yetunde. Tomorrow morning we start. We're going to take everything from him. His money, his freedom, his reputation, and most importantly, we're going to get your children back. He headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. The lawyer representing you will be Ngozi Mbanefo. She's the best divorce attorney in Nigeria. Never lost a case involving child custody. She'll be here at 9 a.m. After he left, Yetunde sat in silence, trying to process everything. Her husband was a criminal. Her uncle had been watching for years. And now, somehow, She was in the middle of what sounded like a war she intended to win. She picked up the phone on the nightstand. Uncle Segun had said she could call whoever she needed. Her fingers dialed her mother's number from memory. "Hello?" Her mother's voice was thick with sleep and worry. "Mama, it's me. Yetunde. Oh, thank God." "Where are you? What happened?" "Uncle Segun called me an hour ago, said, I'm safe. I'm at Uncle Segun's house." Yetunde closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, I'm so sorry. You were right about Obinna. Uncle Segun was right. I was so stupid." "Hush now. You weren't stupid. You were in love." Her mother's voice gentled. "And now you'll get free. Uncle Segun told me his plan. He's going to help you." "I know. Mama, he's been planning this for years. That's your uncle. He never forgets, and he never forgives those who hurt his family." Her mother paused. "Yetunde, you get those children back. You hear me? Don't let that wicked man and his mistress raise your babies." "I won't. I promise." They talked for another hour, her mother catching her up on family news, telling her about her cousins and aunts, filling the silence with the comfort of blood ties. By the time Yetunde hung up, dawn was breaking outside the windows, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new day, a new beginning. Yetunde looked out at Banana Island, at the wealth and power that surrounded her now, and felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope and rage. Obinna thought he'd destroyed her, thought he'd reduced her to nothing. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What revenge do you think Yetunde should get? Comment below. Will she reclaim her children, or will Obinna find a way to strike back first? The battle has just begun. Chapter 3. The law offices of Mbanefo & Associates occupied the entire 20th floor of a glass tower on Ozumba and Badiwe Avenue in Victoria Island. Yetunde sat in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos Lagoon, watching boats cut through the water far below. She wore a borrowed designer suit from Uncle Segun's stylist, navy blue Stella McCartney, tailored perfectly, with modest heels and minimal jewelry. She looked like money. Old money. The kind of money that didn't need to shout. Ngozi Mbanefo swept into the room at exactly 9 a.m., and Yetunde understood immediately why this woman never lost. She was tall, dark-skinned, with natural hair styled in an elegant twist. She wore traditional iro and buba in deep purple ankara, but the cut was modern, professional, powerful. Her eyes were sharp behind designer glasses, and when she smiled, it didn't reach those eyes. "Mrs. Okafor," Ngozi said, extending her hand. "Or should I say, Mrs. Badmus? I understand you'll be reclaiming your maiden name." "Yetunde is fine." They shook hands. Ngozi's grip was firm, confident. "Yetunde, then." Ngozi settled into her chair, placing a leather portfolio on the table. "I've reviewed the preliminary information Mr. Badmus provided. Before we proceed, I need to hear everything from you. Every detail, no matter how small or embarrassing. I can't defend you if I don't know what I'm defending against." Uncle Segun sat at the head of the table, silent but present. His face was unreadable. So Yetunde told her story again. This time she didn't cry. She kept her voice steady, clinical even. As she detailed the 12 years of marriage, the slow erosion of respect, the sudden appearance of Hadiza, the violence of that final night. She showed Ngozi the bruises on her arms, now turned a sickly yellow-green. "Did he ever hit you before Tuesday?" Ngozi asked, taking notes on an iPad. "No. He pushed me sometimes when he was angry, grabbed me too hard, but never like that." "And the children? Did he ever harm them?" "No. He ignored them mostly, especially this past year, but he never hurt them physically." Yetunde's voice dropped. Emotionally, though. The things he said to them, about them. Document everything you remember. Dates, times, what he said, who witnessed it. Ngozi looked up. "The children are your priority, correct? Not the money, not the property?" "My children are everything." "Good. Because here's the reality. Nigerian courts favor fathers, especially wealthy fathers. We'll need to prove Obinna is unfit to have primary custody. The adultery helps. Judges don't like men who bring mistresses into the family home with children present. The violence helps even more. But we need more. Uncle Segan leaned forward. What about the financial crimes? That's where this gets interesting. Ngozi smiled, and this time it did reach her eyes. If we can prove Obinna's wealth came from illegal activities, we can argue that exposing the children to that lifestyle is harmful. We can also freeze his assets, which means he can't pay for better lawyers than us, Yatunda finished. Exactly. Ngozi tapped her iPad. Mr. Badmus has provided extensive documentation of Obinna's fraud, but we need to be strategic. If we go to the police now, this becomes a criminal case, and that could take years. Years your children spend with him and his pregnant girlfriend. So what do? We use it as leverage. We file for divorce and full custody immediately. Emergency custody, actually, given the domestic violence. We'll request a hearing as early as tomorrow. When Obinna fights back, and he will, we reveal we have evidence of his financial crimes. We offer him a deal. Sign over full custody, don't contest the divorce, and we won't press charges. Yatunda frowned. He goes free? After everything? He goes broke, Uncle Segan corrected. The moment those investors find out he's been stealing from them, and they will because I'll tell them, his business collapses. His assets get seized in civil suits. He loses everything except his freedom. And Hadiza will leave him the second the money dries up, Ngozi added. Women like that don't stick around for poor men, so he'll end up alone, broke, and publicly humiliated. It's not prison, but it's close. Yatunde thought about Damilola and Bisi, about getting them back quickly versus watching their father rot in jail while they suffered. How fast can we move? I'm filing the papers this afternoon. Emergency custody hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Judge Oladipo owes me a favor. Ngozi's expression hardened. But you need to be prepared. Obinna will come at you hard. He'll call you a bad mother, claim you abandoned the children, say terrible things about you in court. Can you handle that? I've handled 12 years of marriage to him. I can handle 1 day in court. Good. Ngozi stood. Get me a list of everyone who's witnessed Obinna's behavior, neighbors, friends, family, household staff, anyone who can testify to his character or lack thereof. And get me medical records if you have them, evidence of stress, anxiety, anything that shows the marriage was harming you. What about character witnesses for me? We have the best one. Ngozi gestured to Uncle Segun. One of the richest, most respected men in Nigeria, willing to testify that you're a devoted mother and his beloved niece. That carries weight. After Ngozi left to prepare the filing, Uncle Segun turned to Yatunde. There's something else we need to discuss, something I discovered last night. The tone of his voice made Yatunde's stomach clench. What? Obinna took out a life insurance policy on you 3 months ago, 500 million naira. The room tilted. What? He's the sole beneficiary. If you died, he'd collect 500 million. Uncle Segan's face was grim. Yatunda, I don't think he threw you out to be cruel. I think he threw you out hoping you'd do something desperate. Understanding crashed over her like a wave. That night in the rain, sitting on the curb, wishing she could just disappear. If Uncle Segan hadn't found her, if she'd sat there longer in the cold and wet, if she'd decided to walk into traffic or the lagoon. He wanted me to kill myself, she whispered, or die of exposure, or get hit by a car, something that would look like an accident or tragedy. Uncle Segun reached across the table, gripping her hand. That's why we're moving fast. The moment he realizes you're alive, well, and coming for him with lawyers, he might try something more direct. You think he'd actually? I think desperate men do desperate things. And Obinna is about to become very desperate. Uncle Segun squeezed her hand. You're staying here, under my protection, until this is over. I have security, cameras, guards. He can't touch you. Yetunde looked down at their joined hands. Her uncle's strong and steady, hers still trembling slightly. "Why are you doing this? After everything I said to you, after I chose him over you?" "Because you're family. And family doesn't abandon family, even when they've been foolish." Uncle Segun's voice softened. "I knew you'd come back eventually. I just hoped it would be sooner." That afternoon, Yetunde sat in Uncle Segun's home office, making lists. Everyone who'd witnessed Obina's behavior over the years. It was a depressingly short list. He'd isolated her so thoroughly that few people really knew what went on behind closed doors. But there was the housemaid, Omotola, who'd quit 6 months ago after Obina screamed at her for serving dinner late. Yetunde tracked down her number and called. "Mrs. Yetunde?" Omotola's voice was surprised. "I heard there were rumors that Mr. Obina had sent you away." "He threw me out, Omotola, literally threw me into the rain." Yetunde took a breath. "I need your help. I'm fighting for custody of my children, and I need people who can testify about what kind of man Obina really is." There was a long pause. Then, "He was cruel to you. I saw it. The way he spoke to you, like you were nothing. Like you were a servant instead of his wife." Omotola's voice strengthened. "I'll testify. Tell me where and when." One down. Yetunde called the children's school next, spoke to Mrs. Ifoma, no relation to Uncle Segun's housekeeper, who taught Damilola's 3rd grade class. "I've noticed changes in Damilola this term," Mrs. Ifoma admitted. "He's withdrawn, not participating like he used to. He seems sad. His father brought a pregnant mistress into our home, then threw me out and told the children I abandoned them." Yetunde's voice cracked despite her best efforts. "I'm trying to get them back." "Oh, my dear." Mrs. Ifoma sounded horrified. Yes, of course I'll help. Whatever you need." 2 down. By the time Uncle Segun came to check on her at 6 p.m., Yetunde had 8 people willing to testify. 8 people who'd seen the cracks in the perfect facade, who'd witnessed Obina's cruelty or neglect. "Ngozi filed the papers," Uncle Segun announced. "Obina's been served, and according to my source at his office, he threw the papers across the room, screamed for 20 minutes, then called his lawyer." "What lawyer?" "Tunde Adeleke. Expensive, ruthless, usually represents politicians and criminals. Not as good as Ngozi, but good enough to be dangerous." Uncle Segun handed her a glass of wine. "He'll come after you tomorrow with everything he has. Are you ready?" Yetunde thought about her children, about Damilola's tears and Bisi's screams, about spending one more night knowing they were with that monster and his mistress. "I'm ready." But at 3 a.m., her phone rang. The phone Uncle Segun had given her, the secure line that only a few people had. "Hello?" Yetunde answered groggily. "Yetunde." It was Ngozi, and she sounded wide awake. "We have a problem. Obina just filed a countersuit. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that you've been having an affair with your uncle, and that you physically abused the children." Yetunde shot upright in bed. "That's insane. I never—" "He has a witness. Someone claiming to be a former friend of yours, willing to testify that she saw you hit Bisi last month." Ngozi's voice was tight. "He's also claiming the bruises on your arms are self-inflicted, that you hurt yourself for sympathy." "Who's the witness?" "Zainab Musa. Do you know her?" Yetunde's blood ran cold. Zainab, her former best friend, the woman she'd shared everything with until Obina had slowly poisoned that relationship. Telling Yetunde that Zainab was jealous, that Zainab talked about her behind her back. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. "She's lying," Yetunde said. "I never hurt my children. Never. And Obina must have paid her or threatened her or—" "I believe you. But the judge doesn't know you yet. This complicates things." Ngozi was silent for a moment. "Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow's hearing just became a war." The courtroom was smaller than Yetunde expected, wood-paneled and stuffy, with a ceiling fan that squeaked with every rotation. Judge Oladipo, a woman in her 60s with gray locks and sharp eyes, sat behind the bench reviewing papers. Yetunde sat beside Ngozi at the plaintiff's table, wearing another borrowed suit, this one charcoal gray. Uncle Sagan sat behind them in the gallery, his presence a silent wall of support. Across the aisle, Obinna sat with Tunde Adeleke. Obinna looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit rumpled, his jaw tight with rage. When he saw Yetunde, his lip curled. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Oladipo looked up. "This is an emergency hearing for Yetunde Badmus versus Obinna Okafor, custody of minor children, Damalola and BC Okafor. Ms. Mbanefo, you filed this motion. Proceed." Ngozi stood, commanding immediate attention. "Your Honor, my client was violently thrown out of her home on the evening of July 9th by her husband, who struck her, left bruises on her arms, and forced her into a rainstorm without shoes or belongings. This was witnessed by the couple's 2 young children and by household staff. Since that time, she has been denied all access to her children and has reason to believe they are in an unsafe environment with their father and his pregnant mistress, who now resides in the family home." Judge Oladipo's eyebrows rose. "The mistress lives in the home with the children?" "Yes, Your Honor. Hadiza Salisu moved in while my client was visiting her sick mother in Ibadan. The children have been exposed to this relationship and to ongoing domestic conflict." "Mr. Adeleke, your response?" Tunde Adeleke stood, a barrel-chested man with a voice like thunder. "Your Honor, my client denies all allegations of violence. The bruises on Mrs. Okafor's arms are self-inflicted, part of a pattern of attention-seeking behavior and mental instability. We have witnesses who will testify to her erratic behavior, her neglect of the children, and her inappropriate relationship with her uncle, Mr. Sigun Badmus." Uncle Sigun stiffened behind them. "Furthermore," Adeleke continued, "Mrs. Okafor abandoned her children. She left the home voluntarily and has not attempted to contact them since. My client is concerned for his children's welfare, given their mother's clear mental health crisis." Judge Oladipo looked at Yetunde. "Mrs. Badmus, did you leave voluntarily?" Yetunde stood, her legs shaking, but her voice clear. "No, Your Honor. My husband physically threw me out. I begged him to let me stay with my children, and he refused. I had no phone, no money, nowhere to go. If my uncle hadn't found me by chance, I don't know what would have happened to me." "And you haven't contacted your children because I don't have their phone numbers memorized, Your Honor. My phone was left in the house, and I was afraid—" Her voice broke. "I was afraid that if I showed up at the house, my husband would have me arrested for trespassing." Judge Oladipo made a note. "Mr. Adeleke, you mentioned witnesses. Call your first." Adeleke smiled. "I call Zainab Musa." Zainab walked to the stand, and Yetunde's heart sank. Her former friend looked nervous but determined, refusing to meet Yetunde's eyes. After being sworn in, Adeleke began. "Miss Musa, how do you know the defendant?" "We were best friends for years, since university." "And have you observed Mrs. Okafor's behavior with her children?" "Yes, I visited their home regularly until about 3 years ago." "Why did you stop visiting?" Zainab glanced at Obinna, then away. "Because I saw her hit BC, her daughter. The child was crying, wouldn't stop. And Yetunde just snapped, slapped her hard across the face. I told her that was wrong, and she got angry, said I should mind my business. We haven't spoken since." "You're lying," Yetunde whispered to Ngozi. "That never happened." "I know," Ngozi murmured. "Let me handle this." When it was Ngozi's turn to cross-examine, she stood slowly. "Ms. Musa, you said this incident happened 3 years ago?" "Yes." "And you never reported it? Never called child services? Never told anyone in authority?" Zainab shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want to cause trouble." "But you're causing trouble now. Why?" Ngozi's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. "Did Mr. Okafor pay you to testify?" "Objection!" Adeleke jumped up, badgering the witness. "Sustained," Judge Oladipo said. "Ms. Mbanefo, rephrase." "Ms. Musa, have you received any money or benefits from Mr. Okafor?" "No." "Really?" "Because I have bank records showing a deposit of 500,000 naira into your account yesterday, from an account linked to Mr. Okafor." Ngozi produced papers, handing them to the judge. "Your Honor, this witness has been paid to lie." The courtroom erupted. Adeleke shouted objections, Obina's face went purple, and Zainab started crying. Judge Oladipo banged her gavel. "Order! Ms. Musa, is this true?" Zainab sobbed. He said Yetunde was trying to take everything from him, that she was lying about being hurt. He said I'd just be helping him protect his children." "You're dismissed," Judge Oladipo said coldly. "Mr. Adeleke, do you have any other witnesses?" Adeleke looked like he'd swallowed glass. "No, Your Honor." "Then Ms. Mbanifo, call yours." Ngozi called Omatola first, who testified about Obina's cruelty and Yetunde's devotion to her children. Then Mrs. Ifeoma from the school, who spoke about Damilola's recent distress. Then Uncle Sagan, who confirmed finding Yetunde on the street, bruised and barefoot, in the rain. By the time they finished, Obina looked ready to explode. Judge Oladipo reviewed her notes. "This is highly irregular, but given the evidence presented, the domestic violence, the paid witness, the presence of a mistress in the family home, I'm granting emergency temporary custody to Mrs. Badmus. Mr. Okafor, you will surrender the children to their mother immediately. You'll have supervised visitation rights until a full custody hearing can be scheduled." "What?" Obina shot to his feet. "You can't." "I can, and I have. Bailiff, arrange for police escort to accompany Mrs. Badmus to collect her children. This hearing is adjourned." As the gavel fell, Yetunde burst into tears. She'd won. She'd actually won. But when she looked across the courtroom, she saw Obina staring at her with such hatred that her blood froze. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. What do you think happens when Yetunde goes to collect her children? Will Obina let them go peacefully? Hit like and subscribe for next chapter. Drop a comment. What would you do if you were Yetunde? We love hearing from you. The police escort consisted of 2 officers in a patrol car and 1 social worker, a young woman named Talani, who kept giving Yetunde reassuring smiles that did nothing to calm her racing heart. They pulled up to the Lekki mansion at 2 p.m., the afternoon sun beating down mercilessly, turning the street into a shimmering mirage. Uncle Sagan had wanted to come, but Ngozi advised against it. "The judge gave you custody. This is your moment. Don't let anyone take that from you." So Yetunde sat in the back of Uncle Segun's Rolls Royce. He'd insisted his driver take her, said it sent a message, and stared at the house that had been her prison for so long. From the outside, it looked the same. Beautiful. Perfect. A lie wrapped in luxury. "Mrs. Badmus," Officer Emeka, the senior policeman, turned from the front seat. "We'll handle Mr. Okafor if he becomes difficult. You just focus on getting your children." Yetunde nodded, not trusting her voice. The gate was closed. Officer Emeka pressed the buzzer. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, Musa's voice crackled through the intercom. "Yes?" "Police, open the gate." "We have a court order." Silence. Then the mechanical hum of the gate sliding open. The driveway looked different somehow, less impressive now that Yetunde knew the money that paid for it was stolen. The fountain still danced, the palm trees still swayed, but it all felt hollow, cheap. Obina stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Behind him, Hadiza hovered, one hand on her pregnant belly, her expression smug despite everything. "You have no right," Obina started. "We have every right." Officer Emeka held up the court order. "Judge Oladipo has granted Mrs. Badmus emergency custody. You're to surrender the children immediately." "My children aren't going anywhere with this woman." Obina's voice was ice. "She abandoned them. She's mentally unstable. I won't—" "Mr. Okafor, you're in contempt of court if you refuse." Officer Emeka's hand moved to his belt, near his baton. "Don't make this difficult." For a moment, Yetunde thought Obina might actually attack the officer. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw working, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning that must be pumping through the house. Then Hadiza touched his arm. "Baby, let them take the brats. We don't need them anyway. We'll have our son soon." The contempt in her voice, calling Damilola and Bisi brats, made Yetunde see red. But before she could respond, a small voice called out from inside the house, "Mommy!" Bisi appeared behind Obina's legs, her face lighting up with joy and disbelief. "Mommy, you came back! Baby girl!" Yetunde pushed past Obina, dropping to her knees to catch her daughter as Bisi ran into her arms. The child was warm and solid and real, and Yetunde held her so tightly that Bisi squeaked, "I can't breathe, Mommy!" Sorry. Yetunde loosened her grip but didn't let go, pressing kisses to Bisi's hair, her forehead, her cheeks. "I missed you so much, so much. Daddy said you left us, said you didn't want us anymore." Bisi's voice was small, hurt. "That's a lie. Daddy lied to you." Yetunde looked up at Obina, her eyes blazing. "I would never leave you, never. Daddy threw me out, but I fought to come back. I'll always fight to come back to you." "Damilola," Officer Emeka called into the house. "Your mother is here. Come down, son." But Damilola didn't appear. Yetunde's stomach clenched with worry. "Where's my son?" she demanded, standing but keeping Bisi close. Obina smiled, a cruel, twisted smile. "He doesn't want to see you." Liar. But even as Yetunde said it, doubt crept in. Damilola was 8, old enough to be influenced, to believe his father's poison. What if Obina had turned him against her? "Damilola," Yetunde called, moving toward the staircase. "Baby, it's Mommy. Please come down." Nothing. Talani, the social worker, stepped forward. "I'll go up. Sometimes children respond better to a neutral party." She climbed the stairs quickly, her shoes clicking on the marble. The minutes that followed were agony. Yetunde stood in the foyer, her former foyer, with Bisi clinging to her waist, while Obina glared and Hadiza smirked, and the officers watched everything with professional detachment. Finally, Tolani appeared at the top of the stairs. She was alone. "He won't come out of his room," she called down. "He's locked the door!" Yetunde didn't think. She just ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time, past Talani, down the hallway to Damilola's bedroom. The door was indeed locked. "Damilola, baby, open the door." Yetunde pressed her hand against the wood. "Please, it's Mommy." "Go away." His voice was muffled, thick with tears. "You left us." "I didn't leave. I was forced out. But I came back, baby. I fought to come back." Yetunde's own tears started falling. "I love you. I love you more than anything in this world. Please, please open the door." "Daddy said you're taking us away from him, that we'll never see him again." So that was it. Obina had weaponized their son's love for him. "That's not true," Yetunde said carefully. "You'll still see Daddy, but you'll live with me. Because Daddy did some bad things. Things that mean he can't take care of you right now." "You're lying. Daddy said you'd say that." Behind her, Talani whispered, "We might need to break down the door." "No." Yetunde's mind raced. "Damilola, do you remember when you were 6? When you broke that vase in the living room and you were so scared of what Daddy would do?" Silence. "You hid in your closet, and I found you, and you were crying, and I held you and told you everything would be okay. I took the blame for you, told Daddy it was my fault so he wouldn't be angry at you. Do you remember?" More silence, then softly, "He still yelled." "I know. He yelled at me instead, and I let him because I wanted to protect you." Yetunde's voice cracked. "That's what mommies do, baby. They protect their children, and I'm trying to protect you now, from all the yelling, all the anger, all the bad things happening in this house." The lock clicked. The door opened slowly, and there was Damilola, her sensitive boy, her little scholar, with tears streaming down his face and his favorite book clutched to his chest. "I was scared," he whispered. "I know, baby. I know." Yetunde pulled him into her arms, and he collapsed against her, sobbing. "But you're safe now. Both of you are safe now." She held both her children, BC on one side and Damilola on the other, and felt whole for the first time in weeks. "Let's get your things," Tolani said gently. "Just the necessities for now: clothes, toiletries, favorite toys." It took 20 minutes to pack bags for both children. Yetunde moved through their rooms in a daze, grabbing school uniforms and pajamas and the stuffed rabbit BC couldn't sleep without. Every item was a memory. She'd bought that shirt for Damilola's birthday, hemmed that skirt for BC's school play. When they came back downstairs, bags in hand, children in tow, Obina was waiting in the foyer with something in his hand. A USB drive. "You think you've won," he said quietly. Too quietly. "You think your uncle's money can save you. But I have insurance too." Yetunde's blood ran cold. "What is that?" "Videos. Of you. Naked, crying, begging me to stop." Obina's smile was vicious. "From our bedroom. Hidden cameras. Hours and hours of footage I can edit however I want. I can make you look insane, dangerous, unfit." The room spun. He'd been recording her? Their private moments? "You're bluffing," Yetunde managed. "Am I?" Obina tossed the USB drive up and caught it. "Want to risk it? Want to see what I release to the media if you don't drop this custody case?" Officer Emeka stepped forward. "Mr. Okafor, recording someone without their consent is illegal, and using intimate images as blackmail is something you'd have to prove." Obina pocketed the drive. "Good luck with that. Now get out of my house." Back in the Rolls Royce, with the children buckled safely in the back and Yetunde's hand still shaking, her phone rang. Uncle Segun. "How did it go?" he asked without preamble. "I have the children." Yetunde glanced back at Damilola and BC, both staring out the windows, processing everything. "But Obina, he claims he has videos of me. Intimate videos. He's threatening to release them if I don't drop the custody case." Uncle Segun was silent for a long moment. Then, "He's desperate. That's good." "Good? He's going to destroy me." "No, he's not. Because I just got a call from my contact at EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They're raiding Okafor Enterprises right now. Every file, every computer, every bank record. By tomorrow morning, Obina won't be worrying about custody. He'll be worrying about prison." Yetunde's breath caught. "You went to the authorities?" "Ngozi did. This morning, right after the custody hearing. She presented all the evidence I've been gathering for 3 years. The embezzlement, the fraud, the offshore accounts. The EFCC moved faster than I expected." Uncle Segun's voice was satisfied. "They also got a warrant to search his house. If he really does have illegal recordings of you, they'll find them and confiscate them as evidence. But what if he already uploaded them somewhere? What if— Then we'll deal with it. But Yetunde, listen to me. You can't let him hold you hostage anymore. You have your children back. That's what matters. Whatever else happens, we'll handle it together." The car pulled up to Uncle Segun's estate. As the gate opened and they drove through, BC spoke for the first time since leaving the house. "Mommy, is this where we're living now?" "For a while, yes. It's really big." BC's eyes were wide. "Bigger than Daddy's house." "It's your great-uncle's house. You'll like him. He's a good man." Uncle Segun was waiting at the entrance, and when he saw the children, his stern face softened. "Hello, little ones. I'm your Uncle Segun. Welcome home." Damilola stared at him suspiciously. "Daddy says you're trying to steal his family." "Your daddy says a lot of things that aren't true." Uncle Segun crouched down to Damilola's level. "I'm not stealing anyone. I'm helping your mother keep you safe. There's a difference." "Why does she need help? Daddy takes care of us." "Did he take care of you when he threw your mother out in the rain? When he made her cry? When he brought a strange woman into your home?" Uncle Segun's voice was gentle but firm. "Real fathers protect their families. They don't hurt them." Damilola's lip trembled. He said Mommy was the one hurting us." "And do you believe that?" The boy looked at Yetunde, really looked at her, at the fading bruises on her arms, the exhaustion in her eyes, the fierce love on her face. "No," he whispered. I don't believe it. That night, after the children were bathed and fed and tucked into bed in adjoining rooms near Yetunde's suite, after she'd read them stories and kissed them goodnight a dozen times each, Yetunde sat with Uncle Segun in his study and watched her life unravel on the evening news. Breaking news tonight: Lagos businessman Obinna Okafor has been arrested on charges of fraud and embezzlement. EFCC officials raided Okafor Enterprises this afternoon, seizing documents and computers as part of an ongoing investigation into alleged financial crimes totaling over 300 million naira. The footage showed Obinna being led out of his office in handcuffs, his face pale with shock. Behind him, EFCC agents carried boxes of files. In a related development, Mr. Okafor's investors are calling for answers. Segun Badmus, prominent oil tycoon and one of the investors, released this statement. Uncle Segun appeared on screen, standing in front of his corporate headquarters. I invested in Okafor Enterprises, believing it to be a legitimate business. Instead, my money, and that of 16 other investors, was stolen. We demand full prosecution and restitution. Yetunde turned to him. You're going public. I'm burying him. Uncle Segun's expression was hard. By tomorrow morning, every newspaper, every blog, every social media platform will be talking about Obinna Okafor the thief. His reputation will be destroyed, his business will collapse, and he'll be too busy fighting for his freedom to fight you for custody. What about Hadiza? As if on cue, Yetunde's new phone, a secure line Uncle Segun had given her, buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The message contained a video link. Against her better judgment, Yetunde clicked it. The video showed Hadiza in what looked like a luxury apartment, not the Lekki mansion. She was on the phone, her voice bitter. Yes, I'm leaving him. The money's gone. What's the point? No, I don't care about the baby. We'll figure something out. Look, Obinna was just a payday, and the pay stopped. I'm not sticking around for the fallout. The video ended. Who sent this? Yetunde asked. My security team has been monitoring Hadiza since this began. They intercepted that call 20 minutes ago. Uncle Segun smiled grimly. She's already moved out. Packed her bags this evening while Obinna was being processed at the police station. She's gone. So Obinna had lost everything in one day. His wife, his children, his mistress, his money, his freedom, his reputation. It should have felt like victory. It should have felt like justice. But all Yetunde felt was tired. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait for the full custody hearing. With Obinna facing criminal charges and his mistress gone, no judge will give him custody. Uncle Segun poured them both whiskey. You've won, Yetunde. The war is over. But even as he said it, Yetunde's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time a text message. You took everything from me. Everything. You'll regret this. I promise you. You'll regret this. Yetunde showed Uncle Segun the message. His face darkened. I'm increasing security. No one gets near you or those children without going through my people first. You think he'll actually try something? I think a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous man in the world. Uncle Segun met her eyes. But you're not alone anymore. Remember that. Whatever comes next, you're not alone. That night, Yetunde checked on her children 3 times, unable to shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. Each time, they were sleeping peacefully, Bisi curled around her stuffed rabbit, Damilola with his book still on his pillow. On her 3rd check, she found Damilola awake. Can't sleep? She asked softly, sitting on his bed. Mommy, is Daddy really a bad man? The question broke her heart. He did bad things, baby. That doesn't make him completely bad, but he made choices that hurt a lot of people, including us. Will we ever see him again? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. But not for a while. Yetunde smoothed his hair. Does that make you sad? A little. Damilola's eyes filled with tears. But mostly, I'm just glad you're here. I was scared you were gone forever. Never. I will always come back to you. Always. She kissed his forehead. Now sleep. Tomorrow's a new day. But as Yetunde lay in her own bed an hour later, she couldn't shake the feeling that the new day would bring fresh disasters. She was right. At 4 a.m., her phone exploded with notifications. Someone had leaked a video to the internet. Not intimate recordings of her, thank God, but something almost as bad. Security footage from the night Obinna threw her out, edited and manipulated to look like she'd attacked him first. The video showed Yetunde, from an angle that hid Obinna's violence, seeming to lunge at him, then stumbling out the door voluntarily. The caption read, "Gold-digging wife exposed. Yetunde Badmus attacks husband, then plays victim for rich uncle's money. Full story inside." It was already going viral. Thousands of views, hundreds of hateful comments. She's lying for the inheritance. Uncle Segun is sleeping with her, that's why he's helping. Those kids should stay with their father. She's just another woman trying to destroy a good man. Yetunde read comment after comment, each one a knife to her heart, until Uncle Segun appeared in her doorway. "I know," he said grimly. "My PR team is already working on a response. But Yetunde, this is going to get ugly. Very ugly." "Are you ready for that?" Yetunde thought about her children sleeping down the hall, about the life she was trying to build from the ashes of her marriage, about the truth versus the lies spreading across the internet like poison. "I don't have a choice," she said. "So yes, I'm ready." But she wasn't. Not really. Because the next morning, when she turned on the television, she saw Obinna's lawyer holding a press conference. "My client maintains his innocence on all charges," Tunde Adeleke announced to a crowd of reporters. "These allegations are part of a coordinated campaign by Segun Badmus to destroy Mr. Okafor's reputation and steal his family. We have evidence of fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. We will be filing countercharges immediately." The war wasn't over. It had just begun. This story is reaching its explosive finale. What will happen when Obinna fights back? Will Yetunde's reputation survive? Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Whose side are you on? Next chapter is coming, and you won't believe how this ends. 3 weeks later, everything came to a head. The EFCC investigation had uncovered worse crimes than anyone expected. Obinna hadn't just embezzled from investors. He'd been laundering money for politicians, falsifying tax records, and bribing government officials. The evidence was overwhelming. 17 charges, each one carrying years in prison. His counter-lawsuit against Uncle Segun collapsed when his own lawyer, Tunde Adeleke, withdrew from the case. "I don't represent criminals," Adeleke had said publicly, distancing himself from the scandal. The manipulated video Obinna released? Uncle Segun's tech team proved it was edited, releasing the full uncut footage that showed Obinna's violence clearly. The public opinion shifted overnight. Suddenly, Yetunde wasn't the gold digger, she was the survivor. Now, sitting in Judge Oladipo's courtroom for the final custody hearing, Yetunde watched Obinna shuffle in wearing prison orange. He'd been denied bail after threatening a witness. The man who'd once thrown her out in the rain now looked broken, gaunt, unshaven, defeated. "Mr. Okafor," Judge Oladipo said coldly, "you're facing 17 felony charges. You've demonstrated violence, dishonesty, and moral corruption. Do you have anything to say before I make my custody ruling?" Obinna looked at Yetunde for the first time. His eyes were hollow. "I loved you once," he said quietly. "Before the money, before everything else, I loved you." "No," Yetunde said, her voice steady. "You never loved me. You loved what I could do for you. But I'm done being useful to you." Judge Oladipo banged her gavel. "Full custody granted to Yetunde Badmus. Mr. Okafor, you are prohibited from contacting your children until they turn 18, at which point they may choose to see you. This court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Uncle Segun's security team formed a protective barrier around Yetunde. As she climbed into the Rolls Royce, she felt lighter than she had in years. Her phone rang. It was Damalola, calling from Uncle Sagoon's house where Mrs. Ifoma was watching him and BC. "Mommy, did you win?" "Yes, baby, I won. You're mine. Forever." "Good." She could hear the smile in his voice. "BC wants to know if we can have ice cream to celebrate." "Tell her yes. Tell her we can have anything we want." 6 months later. Yetunde stood on the balcony of her new apartment, modest by Lekki standards, but it was hers. She'd refused to keep living with Uncle Sagun, needing to prove to herself that she could stand on her own. She'd gone back to school, finishing her accounting degree. Uncle Sagun had offered her a job at his company, but she'd declined. "I need to build something that's mine," she'd told him. He'd understood. Instead, she'd started her own consulting business, helping women navigate financial abuse and divorce. Her first client had been a woman whose husband had thrown her out, just like Obinna had. Yetunde had sat across from her and said, "You're not nothing, you're everything, and I'm going to help you prove it." Obinna was serving 15 years in Kirikiri prison. The appeals had failed. The money he'd stolen had been seized. The Lekki mansion was sold to pay restitution to his victims. Hadiza? She'd disappeared, moved to Ghana with some new wealthy man. The baby had never been Obinna's. DNA testing revealed that during the trial. Just another lie in a life built on lies. Damalola and BC were thriving. Therapy had helped. Time had helped more. They asked about their father sometimes, and Yetunde answered honestly. "He made bad choices. We still love him, but we can't be with him." Her phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Sagun. "Sunday dinner? The children want to hear my stories about your mother again." Yetunde smiled, typing back, "We'll be there." She looked out at Lagos, the city that had witnessed her lowest moment and her greatest triumph. The city where she'd been called nothing and had proven she was everything. Her doorbell rang. BC ran to answer it, shouting, "Mommy, someone sent flowers!" The bouquet was massive, orchids and roses. The card read, "From all of us at the Women's Empowerment Network, thank you for speaking at our conference. You've inspired hundreds of women to leave their abusive marriages. You're a hero." Yetunde wasn't a hero. She was just a woman who'd refused to stay down when life knocked her flat. But maybe that was heroic enough. She called her children into the living room, pulled them close and whispered, "You are loved. You are safe. You are everything." And for the first time in 12 years, she believed she was everything too. The end. Life lesson. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. No matter how far you fall, you can rise again. Family, whether blood or chosen, gives you strength, and the man who calls you nothing is simply terrified of the everything you're about to become. Thank you for watching Voice of Auntie Dora. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience and revenge. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to rebuild your life from nothing? Share your story. We're all in this together. Remember, you are not nothing. You are everything. See you in the next story.